Good morning, everybody. John Delarose here, author of For Steam and Country and Gravity of the Game through Superversive Press. I'll be coming out with the Stars Entwined, my new space opera, military SF. That's going to be my main sort of space opera world. I'm gonna set a lot of stories in the future. And I got confirmation yesterday that I am going to have an artist do that. He's a very I can name him at this point. He's a very well-regarded artist in the industry. His name's Kirk DuPont, and he's a great guy. I met him this summer at the Realm Makers Writers Conference, and we talked. I had a drink. I don't know if he shared a drink with me, but I definitely had a drink at the time. And super good guy, just super nice guy. Somebody I personally, as I talked to him and kind of heard his life story and how he was, I want to emulate that guy. He's really great, and I'm happy to work with him. He's a bit more expensive than my last artist, but he is higher quality, and he's a higher quality person, so I'm happy to work with him, despite the extra cost. And that gets to things, because my last artist for my books, even though he did a great job on them for Steam and Country and Gravity of the Game, he decided to pull a little tactic on me, which happens with every single SJW I deal with. And every single SJW does this to everybody who is center-right or doesn't follow their little, jihad off to whatever the outrage of the moment is. His name was Sean King. His website, I think, is STK Creations or something like that. And he's, I think he's STK_creations on Twitter. I was working with him. Everything was fine. Actually, we chat every day. And I've mentioned this before. I mean, I was pretty much friends with the guy. We have a shared love of gangster rap, which you look at me. I'm the biggest gangster out there, as we know. Shared love of gangster rap, shared love of books, shared love of art, a lot in common, right? One day, when the heat was getting really bad, when I was getting, my children doxxed on the internet, and people were going around with that whisper campaign to tell people to defriend me, I found out that he blocked me and he stopped responding to my emails. Now, this has gone on for several months. This is an artist. He's an SJW, and it does apply to the topic here. But he just stopped responding. No contact, no communications, none. I'm not gonna respond. And basically, I've got an audiobook that's ready right now. And yeah, I really should actually start this consultation for him. You're right. I've got an audiobook that I need to release, and I don't have the files for it because he won't talk to me. He won't even give me the files that he's already worked on. I'm fine. I told him straight up. I emailed him, yesterday. I've been emailing him every couple of weeks because I need the content here. But I straight up said, I need these files that you were paid to produce so I can get my audiobook done. You don't even have to do the editing to crop it. I'll do it myself. Just give me the files that you worked on. And he has not even responded to that. So I'm still working on avenues with that. I'm actually going to start a email writing campaign. I've got his email address, and I'm going to just blast it out everywhere and get people to email him if I can't get this, because I have to get my book out. This is hurting my product. It's not a personal thing at this point. But I also wanted to talk to him because I want to find out what his deal is, and repair things, because that's how you talk as a man. If you have a problem with somebody, you talk and work it out. That is how normal people act, right? SJWs don't act that way. SJWs go hide in a hole and they cower, and then they freak out, and that is our lesson today. And this doesn't just happen with my artist here. This is just an example of it. But it happens with everybody. They refuse to actually talk to anybody who is. Did I just jump, Gendry? I might have. Sorry. But they refuse to talk to anybody and actually have a real dialogue with anybody who's not in line with their wacky political beliefs. And what's happened is, unfortunately, because of the last several years of social media and fake news, they've gotten to think that their wacky, way out there, crazy political beliefs are actually the norm. They're not the norm. they're an extreme minority to the point where most people mock them, who are just normal people. And the problem is, over the last election cycle, they got in their head that everybody who is against them is a Nazi, and everybody who doesn't help fight with them is actually sympathizing with Nazis. So when you get that in your head, right, you can't. That's an extreme thing. If these are really Nazis, this is evil. And if people aren't doing something about Nazis, those people are just as evil and just as culpable as the actual Nazis themselves. So they cut off all communications with anybody who doesn't agree with their little Nazi premise, because they don't want to be associated with Nazis. They don't want to even discuss with Nazis. What if those Nazi ideas get into their heads, right? They can't risk that because of the creepy delusion that they put into their head. Well, once they do that, they purge all of their social media, they purge all their friends and contacts in real life, too, of their normal people, of their right-wing people. And so they only have this little echo chamber feed going on of, CNN, the Mary Sue, Salon on repeat, which just says these crazy things on repeat. So at that point, they're getting propagandized to so hard that that's all they see. Now, and this comes back to why their businesses fail when they do this, right? So, one, you've already cut off a large portion of people who will do business with you. I mean, is anybody watching this feed ever going to even attempt to do business with Sean King now? Probably not. He's not trustworthy, and he's shown it. On the other front, though, when you're going this far crazy, you're moving the business like this too. So you're cutting off the center sources of your business also, as you don't have any contact with anybody. And then there's another thing. You don't understand your markets. So if your only sliver is like this much of people, because it's the only crazed people that you're actually interacting with, you actually don't understand the market. And this comes to something else that I want to talk about today. I'm working for the Federalist, which is a media outlet. They do culture, politics, just a lot of stuff, and it's a predominantly right-wing magazine. Of course, that's why they hired me. But I write articles for them periodically about culture and problems with culture, and I've been shifting my focus lately into what are the solutions with culture. We all know there's a problem with culture, right? And we all know it's this extreme SJW group that controls it and doesn't talk to anybody else, and so they produce their little SJW content and their sales decline, right? And they don't, and also they don't respect, it's about respecting people at the bottom line. If you refuse to talk to anybody, who represents half or even 2/3 of the country, you're not interacting with people, and you're disrespecting those people who are your audience, who are people who might work with you. It's just pointless. That's why I would never cut off somebody from talking to me just because they're on the left. I mean, that's just retarded. So, I want them to read my books as much as anybody else. But I'm working for the Federalist, so I'm trying to pose solutions, and I'm looking for culture that's family friendly, that's values oriented, that doesn't hammer me in the face with Game of Thrones, people doing bizarre sex acts while they're actually talking about slaughtering a bunch of people, as if people plan their military conquests in the middle of those sex acts, right? It's like, come on. It's so unrealistically crazy that it's not fun to watch. It makes you feel bad after you watch it. It just makes you feel gross. Or contrarily, they insert the message fiction into their fiction so much that, like, you're reading a Captain America book, for instance, like I was a couple weeks ago, and this guy goes up on a mic on a stage and goes, "I like Captain America because he punches Nazis." It's like, all right, you just threw me out of the story. It's not fun. So because they're not even in contact with anybody on this half of the spectrum at all, they have no knowledge that even annoys people. They have no knowledge that they're pushing too far whatsoever. All they see is Salon saying you're not pushing hard enough, and so they push even harder and harder and harder and harder. And as you push harder and harder and harder and lose contact with more and more people, you're just cutting off your business. It's pure and simple. So my most recent, I'm writing an article for the Federalist. I want to promote somebody's art, and I'll talk about it next week. If this can, I mentioned this on Twitter. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt that this is Thanksgiving week, things are crazy, maybe people are missing stuff. But I've emailed, I've written, all sorts of stuff. So I've talked to them a lot, and sorry for the brief pauses. I get phone calls. I'm a pretty busy guy, so I get phone calls during these broadcasts sometimes. So I've emailed and DM'd and messaged a lot of people regarding this project I want to promote, because it's a solid piece of artwork. And unfortunately, none of them I've gotten zero response. Now, this piece of artwork has got, like 1,000 Twitter followers, right? And the writer in charge has about 1,000 Twitter followers. Now, I'm not that much bigger than that personally. I'm at about 2,000, close to it. And, I'm about 2,000 on Gab. That's where I'm at right now. I'm a slightly bigger than that. But the magazine I write for has about 100,000 readers every day. And they're a big deal. So, but I have the inkling that I'm not getting responded to. I want to promote their art project, right? I have the inkling that I'm not getting responded to simply because this is a right-wing magazine and I'm a right-wing guy, and they just don't even want to, and that's what they're thinking in their heads. And I see this because I'm watching their Twitter feeds. And as I mentioned, the guy's retweeting Jim Acosta and CNN and Salon and all that crap over and over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, dude, your priority, this is the next part where there's a problem. Your priorities are screwed if you're out there signaling politics on the deal when you got a small audience, and you won't respond to something. It's not like I'm some reporter out there trying to gotcha. If you've watched, I don't know. I'm trying to promote this project, and if you won't even respond because you've got this like toxic sort of like, these are Nazis in my head, when there are no Nazis. I'm not out here hurting anybody. I'm just out here trying to promote somebody's art piece with an article. If you don't want that to be your audience, and here's the real kicker. If you want to do that and you don't want that to be your audience, and you have like a family-oriented project, this is a family-oriented project that's like super friendly to people predisposed towards right-wing values. The project itself has me as a target audience. This is the most out of touch part of this whole thing. It has me as a target audience. If I'm your target audience, and you want to disrespect me in this sort of regard because you don't even want to contact and don't even want that there, you've got a problem. And that's what it's going to do is, unfortunately, what's going to happen is, if I can't get a response after Thanksgiving week, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be public about it, because as a journalist, I'm going to let people know who are into family-friendly projects that, the people who are creating this family project actually hate these people and their values. If that's the case, nobody's going to be tuning in and nobody's going to be watching it. And that's going to be a problem, because guess what? Your hyper SJW people are only want to watch and only want to listen to the Marvel Comics constant badgering. They only want to watch Game of Thrones. If you want to make your rated G, rated PG project that's family-oriented, these people aren't watching because they don't have families. These are people who are single into their 20s and 30s, and they don't have children. They hate families, they hate God, and they're never going to come over and watch this project or read this project. It's never going to happen. So, and that's the problem when you're so disassociated as an artist from your target market. You're going to kill your business, and that's the lesson of the end of the day. That I'm trying to communicate today. It's frustrating. I've had this happen not just on the professional level here with people, in terms of journalism. I've had it in my business where it's artists I'm working with, and then I've had it on the friendship level where I've been friends with people for years. Like I said, yeah, exactly. The ID politics is here to stay. And because the identity is so strong, they don't care about their business even. They would rather their business fail because of their identity than anything else, and that's true. And you know, I've lost friends over that, and it's really sad to watch. You know, I've got a friend who we shared a lot of common interests, shared a lot of common books, a lot of common TV shows over the years. We'd meet up at conventions like Dragon Con or Comic Con every year, and because of our identity politics, you know, blocked me and all that this last year. It's like, you've known me since I was 15. Like, why now? Like, you're really offended now? And it's because when you have a derangement that people are Nazis, you are faced with a choice. Like, either they're actually Nazis and you have to do something about it, and you can't dare communicate with them, which causes the cycle of destruction, which I'm talking about, or you have to admit you're wrong, and that's really hard to do. You know, anybody who actually goes into that admitting they're wrong and actually starts to see that, it changes things. I've had a very I have a friend who's a very left-wing writer and still talks to me. That's why I know not an SJW. And this friend is, you know, talked to me about a month ago and said, you know what, I'm very left-wing, obviously, but you know, I'm seeing that the actual sort of Nazi behavior and the actual shutdown of speech and the actual everything I'm supposed to be fighting for people's to be able to live how they want is actually occurring from the left, and it's telling everybody on the right that they're not allowed to even exist. And I'm like, that's true. That's why I'm out here fighting, and I hope you know, it's starting to wake people up. And this person said, because they watch my blogs and my periscopes, that they're starting to wake up on that front. So it is good to talk about things, and it is good to communicate with people on the other side, especially reasonable people on the other side. You should actually almost treasure them more than we treasure our own group, because if they're willing to listen at this point when it's getting so crazy, those are people we want to bring into our camp to make our camp bigger. And I want to make the camp bigger. I want to sell more art. I want to sell comics and books to everyone. You know, I mean, I've got what I've got, but I'm not going to try to let my messages that override my fiction, because I want to produce fun fiction for everybody. And I'm going to try to treat everybody with respect too. If somebody on the left wants to read my book, you know, I got a review the other day from a guy from File 770, which is it's a hate website that hits conservatives. And his post was, you know, well, actually, John actually wrote a pretty good story, believe it or not. It wasn't crap. And, and I'm like, well, yeah, why don't you try it, Sam I Am? And you know what, you know, he phrased it in a way that was a little hostile, because obviously, but, and it was on a site that was hostile towards me. But I went on there and I left a comment and thanked him for reading, because you know what, it's brave of him to read, and it's brave of him to actually admit he liked my stories. So I appreciate that. You know, his post there means a lot to me. So that's it. I think on our side, I guess the lessons are don't not communicate with your friends on the left or family on the left who think differently than you. You know, especially the ones who are reasonable and aren't out there targeting you. And just make sure that we are a little different than them, and that's how we're going to win going forward, because we're going to show that we are better than them. Now, I don't subscribe 100% to the like don't fight back. Obviously, I do, and I don't subscribe to the don't call them out. And I'm not saying like be a dignified loser here, but treat the people who are respecting you as respectable people as well. So I've got a phone call now. I've got to go. Got work to do. So I'm going to try to get good content out for you. I'll talk to you guys soon.